Hey everyone, today we are solving Dynstr from HackTheBox, a medium-rated machine. Straight away I've run russcan and we can see there are 3 ports open, 22 for SSH, 53 for DNS, and 80 for HTTP. I'm going to go ahead and run my web stuff, so basically gobuster. This will basically cover directories and this will cover subdomains. The reason this is important is because if we're running in the background, it may give us a clue later on, or maybe just helpful to get us a kickstart. I'm going to go ahead and enter on there. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on WhatWeb. WhatWeb will basically just tell me what's running on the local system. Let me go ahead and look at this. We can see there's a few bits and pieces open. Give it a few more seconds just to enumerate a little bit more. We can see there's a nick open. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. So I know from my experience that nick is what we want to look for. So I'm going to go ahead and hit FG, just basically kill all my background tasks because I don't want to confuse myself. Cool, and that should be all of them, or almost. I probably shouldn't kill my vhost there, but it's okay. Mistakes were made, but no worries. I'm going to go ahead and add nick there. There are probably cleaner ways to do this, but it's just my approach. I've ran gobuster with nick added to the end, and in a second we should see a /update. I'm going to go ahead and check that out. My apologies, I have some previous content from the previous video I was doing. My dog was barking, so I had to cancel. So go back to where I was, a nick update. I'm going to go ahead and Google that and quote it so that so my browser doesn't think it's a path to anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and hit this. While that's loading, I'm going to go ahead and look at the main page, down in DNS. Have a little scroll down to the middle, and there's some host names, some domain names leak, and also a username and password. Scrolling down here, I can see that it kind of wants a username and password. It's my assumption that basically what it wants is me to provide those username and password. I'm going to go ahead and just steal this. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the end of here. Hit enter. Still get the same error of badauth. That's because I haven't provided any username and password. What I can do to make my life a little bit easier, I'm pretty sure, is I can just prepend Dynstr. I can get it right. Dynstr, DNS, co1, at there. That should then work. It did not. To avoid messing around with that, I'm going to go ahead and just intercept and just do it here. It probably will work. I probably just messed with the syntax, to be honest. When you go ahead into repeater, when you go ahead and create an authorization header. For the sake of doing it right, I'm going to go ahead and basically just use a website to generate me one. It's really simple, and this website explains how to do it. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel my proxy. So let's get to the page. I should set my scope so it doesn't. It only intercepts HackTheBox stuff, but I just reset my burp, so it doesn't do that. Basically what it does is it takes the username and the password, basics_fuzz adds a colon between, and then basics_fuzz the username and the whole thing, and then creates the token. I'm going to go ahead and just take the username and password again like I did before. As you can see here, paste that there. That takes this, puts a colon in front of it, then adds password, then basics4 encodes it, adds the prepends the avoid authorization, and then that is it. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and just get into my repeater. You can see here if I run this, I get a badauth. If I just drop it in here, now we shouldn't get a badauth. Now we get a wrong domain. Now in this case, that's just I gave a random domain. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and try dynstr.htb. Wrong domain HTB. I'm going to go ahead and add a subdomain, see if that works. That does not work. I do, however, remember that there were some other domains leaked. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and go ahead and paste it there. And we get a good. Okay, awesome. So we made a little bit of progress there. I'm going to go ahead and drop into my intruder. I basically want to fuzz if we get any different output. I'm going to go ahead and hit clear. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap this like that. I'm going to go ahead and use one of Burp's pre-made word lists. The pro version has this, the free version does not, or the community version. It's really simply just a list of fuzzy stuff. You can probably Google sacklist fuzz list and basically just paste it in there. I'm going to go ahead and start the attack. I'm going to go ahead and just review what is in there. I don't really care too much about the 400 since it's basically just a bad request and there's not going to be anything useful there. In other examples, it may be a case where the 400 is actually part of the attack, but in my case it's not, and it's just going to get in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and review basically the content. In the response, I want to basically look for different kinds of content. In my case, I'm just interested in what's here. I want to go ahead and just scroll and just really read what I'm looking at. So I'm getting very much all of the same errors for a while until I get an nsupdate failed. That is a different error. Scroll down a few more times and getting very similar stuff. This to me looks like bash stuff. So for example, in bash you may use this. You may maybe you're wrapping it in double quotes. Who really knows? Keep scrolling. Lots of just things that you may use in bash or some kind of shell, which is interesting. And the reason I go down this line is because we've seen the word nsupdate. And from my experience of networking and stuff, nsupdate is a tool used in Linux, as long with other operating systems too, I believe, where basically you can modify DNS entries and set stuff up. Basically, it's a DNS configuration tool to update the name servers. And it probably does more as well than that, but that's just what I've used it for. Anyways, so I mentioned about it basically being executed as bash. I don't know that yet, but it's just my assumption. I'm going to go ahead and take this as some inspiration and basically just pass this into a repeater. Then you go ahead and hit send. And I'm like, that's interesting. Still get the same error, of course. However, I'm thinking, well, if this is taking a host name and we give it an ID, it's not really going to work because ID is a long line with various characters, whereas who am I is not. I want to basically change the command that is used to instead be who am I. Because if it is executing it, then it's going to give a big long text versus a single word. I'm going to hit send here, and we can see we got a good. Interesting. So why did that work? Well, the reason that worked is, like I said before, ID is a long string of characters with various special characters. Maybe it doesn't like spaces, maybe it doesn't like commas. Whereas who am I was probably just going to be one word, or maybe with back spaces, and it was really a case of just trying to guess, really, when I was doing this, and be like, okay, it probably would work because who am I is only a single word or two, whereas ID is obviously a lot longer. Anyways, I digress. So I know that who am I works. I want to basically see what else works. So I want to basically just confirm that I'm actually right in terms of the way it's executing commands. So who am I works. What if I add an A there? I get an error. What if I remove the I? I get an error. So who am I? It must be executing because it's basically saying, is who am I available to me? Yes, it is. Run the binary. Whereas who am I with an A at the end doesn't exist. Therefore, there's an error. Okay, so where can we go from here? So we have what I believe to be command injection. So the obvious thing to do really would be a case of trying to confirm it. Now, it's a little bit weird in the way that this is basically executed, and it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to get around it. But basically the way this works is it's passing this to nsupdate, and then nsupdate is performing the command. Now we can't just drop in a reverse shell here because there may be spaces, special characters, and just the way that the code's put together, it's not always going to work. So we need to basically keep it as simple as possible. So in terms of my enumeration, I basically want to see what I can pass into it to make it work. Now, when I initially did this, I scripted it, and that's how I did it, how I made it easy for myself. But in my case, I'm going to do this all via Burp so you can see. If you'll be interested in me showing you how to script it, then I'll be more than happy to in another video, should you request it. But it's really simply just to make my life easier. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to go ahead and just try a few things. So echo A. Now this isn't going to work because that space is going to break the URL. I'm going to hit Control U there, and that works. Okay, so if I now remove that and put say echoer, just going to check. Yep, we get an error. Right. So basically, what I want to do is I want to try and get reverse shell. So I know that echo and stuff works. So I want to basically first of all just try to do WGET simply a web, which will basically just print out my IP. And you go ahead and copy this. Gonna go ahead into my repeater, paste this here, go ahead and just URL encode it. Okay, did that work? Didn't seem to work as the page hasn't responded, which is interesting. Okay, so it doesn't appear that we can just directly drop in that kind of code. So we need to think a bit smarter. How about if we were to say it's base64? Now this is jumping a few steps. In my fuzzing, it took me a bit of a while to get to this point, but my approach basically is, well, maybe we can't use certain characters. Say for example a colon. You're not going to have a colon in a subdomain, at least not that I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure it doesn't meet the RFC. So in my case, I want to basically try and use as minimal things as I can. Equally, it might be a case of the way that's being passed, special characters may break it. So in my case, I want to go ahead and basically just try base64. So I'm going to go ahead and do this locally. I want to go ahead and echo, say, hello to base64. And I can see it's there. Okay. What I want to try now is I want to go ahead and put in my WGET. This may still be my clipboard. I'm not sure. It is in my clipboard still. And then we have this. Okay. Interesting. Now, this isn't going to just execute straight away. In the sense of we can't just drop the base64 in there. We need to basically pass the base64 into here so it can decode. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and echo this. I'm going to go ahead and URL encode. A little bit hard to read, actually. I'll do URL encode after. So we're going to echo that into base64 -d to say, hey, I want you to decode this. And then I want to then pass that into bash. So that executes it basically. So I want to say, hey, echo this content, base64 decode it, and then tell bash to do it. Let's hit enter, see what happens. Okay, we get a bad request. That's because I didn't URL encode it. Go ahead and do that. Hit enter. nsupdate failed. Okay, it didn't like what I did. So why didn't it like what I did? I want to go ahead and go back. I want to basically see what's happened. So I am executing. I'm echoing this content into here. Maybe the reason it didn't work is I didn't put quotes around it. Maybe that could be why it didn't work. It also might not be working because my web server wasn't open. Me being a bit stupid there. We'll find out though. Hit send. There we go, that's working. So this is our IP. This is not my IP. So we know that we can get basically code execution. Just to summarize, the way that this worked is basically I couldn't just use WGET because I didn't like that. I had to basically use less characters. In my case, using this to say, hey, I want you to do some command substitution. We're echoing this content, piping it into base64, which is a Linux utility to do base64, with the -d flag to decode, and then pipe in the result of that, which will be bash. In this case, if I just copy this, you can see what it's doing. Echo that, and then we can see that it's basically just pasting that. If we were to then paste that into bash, it would then run that, but of course our web server isn't open. I'm going to go ahead and just split horizontally, open up lweb, run that command again, just so you can see it working. And boom. See? So now that we know that's working, the next step is to go over a shell. So I want to go ahead and leave the web server open here. I'm going to go ahead and run shells, which basically just prints out a reverse shell. In my case, I want to go ahead and use this one since it's very reliable. Go ahead and clear that. Go ahead and echo that. Now I could script this. I kind of regret deleting the script now for sake of demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and run this. Now we should get basic full string. The reason I did the -w0, or the reason my history did that, is because it would basically make it into 2 lines, which I didn't really want. I could always just delete it and append it together. As you can see here, the AU hooks up to there and the MT is there. It's just simpler really. Anyway, I'm going to hit enter, copy this. I'm going to go ahead into my Burp. I'm going to go ahead and replace this content there. I'm going to go ahead into here. I'm going to go ahead and open my shells. I'm going to go ahead and hit Ctrl-L to clear that. I'm going to go and hit send. In this case, I got an error, and that's because I didn't URL encode. Hit Ctrl-U, hit send. We should have got a reverse shell. Maybe. Maybe I messed something up on the way. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel that. Maybe I broke something on the way. Go ahead and my Callie's getting in the way 1 second. Go ahead and just copy. Or yeah, just checking it was right. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Maybe I just didn't copy it right. It's probably the case. Ctrl-C. Paste this into here. There we go. That's probably what was wrong. hit send. That isn't going to work since my shell probably isn't open. Or is it? No, it is indeed actually open. So now we have a shell. In my case, I want to go ahead and just copy this. So we have a slightly nicer shell. And now we have code execution. Sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize my burp since I don't want it in the way. Cool. Now we have code execution. So let's move on. So I spawned in this directory, and I'm going to look at what's in it. So we have an index.html and an update. Let me go ahead and hit LA. We can see here that index.html is empty. No point reviewing that. But update is not empty. This is a file here. I'm going to go ahead and cat it. And basically just review the contents. So this seems to me that this is a PHP code which handles the nsupdate stuff. Basically, we can see here that this is our content here. We're echoing this into here and then using this key to do it. Interesting. I'm going to go ahead into here and just see what else is in there as well. OS. Let's see bind. You can see here that there is a few other files in there. Bind.keys, some TB stuff. I've reviewed this, so not so much in there. One thing that comes in useful later is this infra.key. I didn't know it at the time, but it's very useful. Cool. So now I know that there's 3 keys in there. I'm going to leave it at that. The name of the box is Dynstr. It's kind of related to DNS. So the next part of the privesc relates to DNS, but I didn't know it at the time. You can't make assumptions, but sometimes it's nice to just have an idea. Anyways, back to where I was. I'm going to go ahead into check out the home. Now I also ran my enumeration scripts, but I'm not going to bore you guys by doing that. I'm going to show you the manual enumeration. So basically looked at the home, looked into bind manager. See here that there's 2 files or 2 somethings. Go ahead and add an LA, in which case we get a directory. I'm going to go ahead and paste that again in there. The reason I have command history is because the command I'm running, when I accepted the shell, I used my shells program, which basically uses rlwrap. If you're interested into how that works, I believe I explained it in my monitors video, video I did last week. Really good box, really enjoyed it. And if you go ahead and check out about 3/4 of the video, you'll probably see what it means. Anyways, back to where I was. So we can see here there's a few bits and pieces in here. I went ahead and reviewed these, but the main point to look at is this strace. I'm going to go ahead and hit there, paste. Cool. I can see here that we have read access. I could see here as well, but in my case, I can read this file. I'm going to go ahead and remove the LA. I'm going to go ahead and add the cat. Lots to it. Not really that readable, but upon scrolling up, we can see that there's an RSA key. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Copy. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab. I'm going to go ahead and open up code in the current directory. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit file, new file, ID, RSA. Paste that in there, long string, Control H to do find replace, do Control N there, and then hold Shift, press Enter, and then press Enter normally. Cool, that looks good to me. Hit save. Now we have that, we want to go ahead and SSH in as that user. In my case, we have it here. I need to really save it somewhere. Save it as the right name. Here we go. Okay, that doesn't seem to want to work, so we need to go ahead and hit chmod 600 ID_RSA. The reason we need to do this is because basically the permissions need to be set on it, so it can't be modified. Go ahead and run that. It's asking for a password and saying we have an invalid format. I'm going to go ahead and just check real quick that we pasted this correctly and there's nothing missing. It's possible that when I copied it, it didn't work. Maybe it wants a new line, not sure. Go ahead and have a go. Okay, there we go. It now fixed that format error. I'm going to go ahead and go SSH. Cool. So I know where that is, and we'll leave that at that. So why isn't it working? So there's an ID_RSA key. I'm curious why it doesn't work. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and check out that directory again, except this time I'm going to look into their SSH directory. And there's some authorized keys. I'm going to go ahead and hit copy here. It's not often the authorized keys files are any different than just a key, but in this case, something I found new, that's synchronizing from anything, so any subdomain, .infra.dyna.htb. Now, after some research into how to do this, I basically looked into, well, how can I make it so I'm allowed? Basically, the DNS needs to say, right, the host name needs to relate to my IP, my 10.10.10.14.4 IP. So how does that work? So I mentioned before about infra. So if you look here, we can see here from infra.dyna.htb. I was like, oh, I know this. I saw this earlier. So I go ahead and ls to where it was before. I believe it was something bind, not here. Keep going back till I find it. ls bind. Go ahead into infra, copy. Or maybe not copy here, but cd into here, ls. Now, funnily enough, actually, we got our CE via nsupdate, and we can also use nsupdate to basically set our IP to hostname. So I'm going to go ahead and try nsupdate, and I'm going to go ahead and pass that nsupdate, pass that key that we used before, infra.key, and then that should now work. Now, simply what we want to do is we basically want to pass this to it and say, yep, update A. So I just use it the letter A, doesn't matter as long as it's some character that is RFC compliant, so basically A to Z and stuff. I believe you can use numbers, I'm not sure, but basically just a standard character, and then 10.10.14.4. Hit OK there, and then hit send. And then do again. So this time I want to create a pointer record. Basically, this is an A record, and then a pointer will just point at my host. Same sort of thing here. So we accept. We have to say this in reverse. So our IP is 10.10.14.4. This is 10.10.14.4 backwards. It's a little bit confusing, but basically, it will just tell the DNS server how to resolve to us. Cool. Hit send. All right, and like magic, this should now work. Isn't that crazy? It kind of blew my mind too that actually worked. I actually stood up in my chair. I was like, what the hell? That is the weirdest thing. But anyways, moving on. So now we have an actual user. First thing I do whenever I have a real user is hit sudo. And when I see there's an actual something we can do in sudo, I get excited because I think, this will be a nice little prevesc. Cool. Gonna go ahead and cat this. Sweet. So there's some content in here. The more lines of code there is, often the more chance of RC there will be. So basically, to summarize this file as we'll go through, I'm going to go ahead and actually just copy this into my vscode, just so we have syntax highlighting, and it'll make it easy for you guys to read. Cool. Hit copy, go into here, Control N, save as priv. If I can type properly, priv.sh. That will basically just tell vscode that it's an sh file and give us syntax highlighting. Let's go ahead and run through the code. In my case, it's basically running the script, printing the current directory. It's saying if a .version file does not exist, then throw an error. Then it's saying read the version of the file. So read the contents of the version file. So often versions tend to be numbers, and then if it is less than the current version, then basically throw an error. So what we need to do basically is we need to create a version file that has got a number greater than the previous number. And then second of all, what we need to do is we need to look into the rest of the code here and see a cp.version, so copy the version file, and anything to this directory. Now, when I saw this, I was like, okay, interesting. So what can we do? So we have the ability basically to copy any file as root to this directory. I was like, okay. So in terms of privesc, what I would probably do is I would use what you call a SUID bash. So basically, what that means is if I get ls-la bin bash, we can see here that we have bin bash, and basically when we run bash, it will run as the current user. What I want to do is basically just copy that. So copy bin. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go into cd into temp, make a directory, we'll put priv, cd into priv, cool. And then I want to go ahead and cp bin bash to the current directory. Now, if you look at the color, it's green. Now, if I do what you call chmod, which basically means change mode, plus s for SUID bit, and then type in bash, and now we do ls, now it should be red. What does that mean, though, when we do SUID? Basically, what that means is if we run a SUID file, it will basically run as the owner of that file. So in this case, bash is owned by bind manager. So if I run this, I will run as bind manager. But of course, I don't have any other users to run as, so I can't just change the owner of that. But if I were to say root, I could say actually I want this file to run as, say, www.data or something. But since we don't have that privilege, it's going to run as us. But we can copy a file as root, and if we copy a file as another user, we often assign those privileges to that new file. So what does that mean? So in our case, what we can do now is we can basically go ahead and create a version file. So echo, say the number 2 to .version. Go ahead and run the sudo -l. Sudo, paste. We had an error, but that's okay. And then we go in ls, and then we take that directory. If we're quick enough, it should still be in there. We can see there's a bash in there. However, the bash is owned by root. But if we run it, it won't give us access to that particular binary, unfortunately. And the reason for that is because we can't actually, it's not actually set as SUID, right? Like it is owned by root, but it isn't SUID, right? If we do ls here, compare, so ls in the current directory, we have a bash and it's read to with an s here. Whereas if we do ls in the other one, it is indeed owned by root, but there's no SUID. So how do we get around this? So there's a little bit of an interesting thing in Linux, basically, where if you're using the star, as it is in the code here, basically it will use any file. And sometimes those files can then actually pretend to be arguments, which is kind of weird. But basically, when you're in Bash, when say there's 2,000 so let's touch on a file called like I can type AAA. There's 2,000 here. Say we did ls star. What that's really doing is it's saying ls AAA and bash. Basically, same result, right? So if we have a file which is called, say, -la, like that, it will then actually run la. So if I were to then go touch, or touch might work, but echo some string, doesn't matter what, to say la, then I hit ls, you can see there's an la in there. Interesting. So if I now go ahead and ls star, I actually get the la in there. So if I was to go cd into the directory before that and go ls, I only get this content. But if I cd into the previous directory and I do ls, I actually ls star, I actually get it run differently. You can see here like ls here. So it's actually running the --la as a file, which is interesting. You'll also notice that the file isn't appearing in the list, despite being in there. That's because it's basically being interpreted as a file, as an argument. So I mentioned to you before that basically when we do ls and then we do like ls star, it goes actually what's doing is ls aa bash and then -la like that. That's what it's doing. But the LA is being interpreted as an argument, so therefore it's actually really only doing this. Okay, so now we understand how that works, at least I hope so. What does that mean? So we can do man bash, basically. Sorry, not man bash, man cp. And basically what we can look for is something that might help us. Now we look at this. Preserve an attribute list. So default is mode, ownership, and timestamps, if possible additional attributes. Basically what this means is if we add this flag, it will basically copy the SUID bit. So if I were to do, say, ls, and another reason why we had to chmod it is because it lost it. So if I cd bash into bash2, look at the color, bash2 isn't red. But if I do the same, if I go preserve, if I can spell correctly, I say this so often, but it's so true, and preserve, I think it's preserve mode. Let me go ahead and check that. That's an error on my end. Go ahead and check. What is it now? It's --preserve. Yeah, just preserve. Okay. Maybe we need to tell it how to do it. Preserve equals mode. Actually, before I run that, I'm going to go ahead and just show you before. So run that there. I spelled preserve wrong. That's why. There we go. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and remove the mode. Now if I go and run this, and now I run ls-la, you'll now see that actually preserved it. So when we copied bash to bash 2, we didn't preserve the permissions, but when we copy it using the --preserve, we keep the permissions, which is obviously what we want. So using the same tactic we use with the LA and ls, I want to go ahead and go echo 1 to basically just we use single tick so it doesn't interpret it as an argument. Then we want to go ahead and basically just steal this, copy and paste. Now if we go ahead and hit ls-la, now we have the --preserve. Now the LA thing might break it. It might say, "Oh, ls doesn't exist," but it should be okay. But just so I know that it's just so I know that it's actually going to work, I'm going to go ahead and basically just remove the file. I think this should work. It's probably actually going to tell me that it's not a legit thing. This is the awkward thing when the file is an argument. It kind of reads it as an argument when you try and tell it to delete it. If I do, I think remove ls. I go maybe like this. Is that going to work now? Oh no, sorry. If I remove LA, maybe this will work now. Nope. Remove. I think I can just try and get this to work. RM LA. Maybe I put a / before it so it reads it as a legit file. Okay, I might have messed that one up, but basically what I'm trying to do is remove the LA. But I'm gonna hopefully try and run the command and hopefully it will work. Yeah, so sudo -l again. Actually, I can probably just do what I did before. To version, when you go ahead and echo the number 3 to version, when you go ahead and run sudo, run that again, ls-la, and you go ahead and copy the path. Going to go ahead and paste it in such directory because I need to go like that. Now we have a bash 2 in there. Funnily enough, actually kept it both. In this case, this is owned by us, which is okay, because what I want to do next is we want to go ahead and then run that file as p. Sorry, run bash as p, and that should work. Nope, it did not. I think I messed something up there, that's why it didn't work. Let me go ahead and just figure out what I did wrong. Just check the permissions on it. I'm just for the sake of ease, in case that LA is messing up, I'm gonna go ahead and just make another directory. Group 2. I'm gonna go ahead and just go echo the version. Like but it actually wants to let me do it version. For some reason, my command history isn't working. Anyway, whatever. Echo the number 4 to .version. I want to go ahead and cp bash to my current directory. I just want to preserve using the same. I'm going to actually set it as preserve mode. Maybe actually wants to know that preserve mode. Maybe it's a case of setting it like that. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and now do what I did last time. Except this time I'm going to tell it to preserve the mode. Oh, I know why I don't have the command history. It's because I'm running the old shell. I'm going to go ahead and exit and drop into the previous shell. That's why it wasn't working. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into echo for where I was before. Preserve. Okay, if it wants to actually let me get that. Where is it? It's going so smooth before. Okay, preserve was mode. I think that's what I want to run. Nope, cd into here. Nope, cd into prev, and then prev again. And then have another go. So -f preserve mode. Now if we now run sudo, we go ahead and run that again. I'm going to go ahead and run that, and boom, we have an effective EUID of root, which is sweet. Right. So that's awesome. The box is rooted, and then finally we want to go ahead and run this, which will basically just drop us the user flag and the root flag, which is sweet. I might, well, I mean, I certainly can go ahead and create the script to do the RC It's not particularly complicated to do. It's a case of basically just going into here, copy, go back a little bit, copy this extensions, copy as Python requests, drop it into Python, and basically just keep sending requests till we get LCE, and then add some basics for encode function in there. So that would be how it works, but that'll be for another video. I want to keep it short. If you do want me to demonstrate that, I've done a bunch of exploit development in Python and bits and pieces of that, so I'd be interested in doing videos on that if there's enough interest for it. Anyways, I'm going to end the video here before I keep droning on. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. I mentioned before this, I'm kind of new to the whole YouTube scene, so apologies for my errors and stutters and just general amateur-esque fashion. But yeah, if you can go ahead and like and subscribe, that'll help me out a bunch, and see you in the next one. Take care, bye.